Welcome to Seeking the Truth with Caroline Stevens. Today I've got Robert Green in our Welsh studios, and we're going to be looking at a case I've never heard of, Samantha Baldwin. The case of Samantha Baldwin incorporates the family courts, and I know there's probably quite a few people watching today that are concerned about the family courts and the secrecy aspects in particular. So over to you, Robert. Can you tell us a little bit about the Samantha Baldwin
case? Yes, I can. I can't say too much for legal reasons, but I can say enough to show that a gross miscarriage of justice has taken place, and at this present time 2 little boys' lives are probably in great danger at this moment, thanks to the corruption of the family division, okay, and a particular judge, and who I'm going to name. What happened was that a case rather like the Holly Gregg case and many other cases that especially women who've been in the family courts will know, the children come forward and say that they've been abused, sometimes by the stepfather and sometimes by the natural father.
Right. And
of course they go to the police, and what happens, and the public don't always realise this, that the police and your social services frequently take the word of the father or the stepfather rather than the mother, even though the evidence is strong.
How does that happen then?
Well,
we've got cases on we've got cases on on Facebook where
yes.
I've interviewed the mums.
Yes.
And it is quite shocking. And
yes.
It's so commonplace.
Well, I've been to this. You've probably heard of legal aid for women and women's coalition and so forth. I've been down to meetings in London at the family division court,
right.
for demonstrations, because the number of women who are being absolutely devastated over the loss of their children is unbelievable. They're often either given to the men who abuse them, or often taken and then fostered out or given for adoption.
Well, of course, there's money to be made, isn't there?
Because there's a lot of money to be made. It's a lot of real corruption, sexual corruption involved. But primarily what drives this is money. The family division makes money. Even the supposedly good lawyers and good judges are making money out of the misery of children, making the misery of mothers, grandmothers, all sorts of loving parents, even and some of the men suffer as well, all to make money and deprive the loving parents or the genuine parents of their children so that they can be sold or hired. This is a slur on the whole of this country. As far as I'm aware, no other country in Europe has felt the need to have a similar process. But the 1989 Children Act, even let's just give it credit for the fact it was well-meaning, has turned out to be a disaster for so many children and families and women right across this land. And very little is being done to stop it, because a big section of the legal profession and adoption agencies and all kinds of other people's spin-off situations are making a lot of money out of stealing children, basically. That is what this is all about. And this is a scandal. I hope this will come up at the next election, because this is so important. And I have to say to all the people, if you think it happens to other people, don't think that. It could happen to you. It could happen to be your son, your daughter, your grandson, your nephews, your niece. All that is needed, let us say you have a daughter and she marries a man and they split up. Unpleasant things can take place. Doesn't necessarily have to be abuse or anything like that. But there will be an element when social services come in to try and deprive one or both of those parents of their child so that they can sell them or hire them into the. That is a question. So if you think it can't happen to you, no, it can happen to any single one of us.
Well, you mentioned about the next general election, and of course we've been uncovering corruption
yes.
actually at the ballot box
yes.
on an industrial scale.
Yes.
So, I mean, where can we go? I mean, they've apparently manufactured so many ghost votes.
What on this particular issue, I think something that I've thought about, because obviously I stood for Parliament to, I suppose, the Holly Gregg case was the only way I could really get out into the public domain. And my suggestion is, I'm not making a personal voluntary effort at the moment, but what would be a very good effort, have candidates standing on closing the family courts on that basis.
Yeah.
Right?
For sure.
That would be, and preferably it would be best if it was first used a by-election, because all the media focus goes on that by-election.
Yes.
Rather than many. If a by-election comes up, I'm only suggesting this for people to think about.
Just
it
as
might
a
be well worth to
publicity.
put out a candidate on this
Yeah.
basis, and it would get media attention. It would force the other candidates to offer an opinion on this. What do they think about the family courts? And they could cite the many cases that we all know about, these gross injustices, versions, of course, of justice that have taken place in the family courts. These could all be put onto leaflets and logged to show that this is a real issue in this country.
Yeah.
And if we can't protect our children, what kind of country are we? We don't have a country. in my opinion.
Absolutely.
So this is just a suggestion. I'm throwing this open to everybody.
Yep.
Candidates, approach the candidates there, but
They're going to be
get them-
independent candidates because,
Yeah.
you're not going to get these political parties that are prepared to put it in their manifestos.
Well, you're not. But if you put independent candidates up with just this one issue, that's the thing.
Yes.
Because if you go to a Conservative or a Labour or Lib Dem or anyone else, they'll say, "Oh yes, we agree with it," but then they're dealing with about another 40 different issues,
Yes.
and you can be pretty sure the one that you want them to talk about won't be included. They'll talk about the economy, they'll talk about immigration, they'll
They
talk
won't
about
talk
this,
about
that, and the other,
family courts.
but not the family courts. So it needs people who are going to stand. The particular case that I had some assistance in, I got to know about, is that two little boys came forward to their mother and grandmother and talked about the fact that they'd been abused by their father and a ring of other men. They also quite clearly went into detail about how the father had drugged them, and of
And
course,
pass them around.
yep.
And which part of the country is this?
This West Ridge started in Rochdale, which of course is a
Right,
notorious
okay.
area for covering it, but it isn't necessarily there isn't necessarily a racial element in this, I must say.
No. Okay.
Okay.
Well, and that is important to
Yes.
impress upon people. This is not about race. The white establishment is perhaps more guilty.
Oh yes, it suits the white establishment to actually vilify Muslims and Asian men
Absolutely.
and so forth. So the members of the public you're watching, you'll know people will say, oh, whenever there's a paedophile case, oh yes, it's those Muslims, those Asian
Not
men.
at all, is it?
Well, I'm sure that it is right in that they're happening, but there are far worse cases involving the white establishment. That is a smokescreen. You're being brainwashed to blame the Muslims and the Asians for this.
Absolutely. Right, Robert, thank you so much. That was our part one
Right.
of the Samantha Baldwin case.
Yes.
And thank you to everybody at home for watching Seeking the Truth with Caroline Stevens and Robert Green. Isn't he a fantastic guy and a real star? And look forward to seeing you again soon.